Today we're going to do a brief review on solving equations, and then we're going to take a re-quiz of the first quiz we took. So let's go back and review what we need to do when we solve an equation. When we solve an equation, we're trying to isolate the variable. The variable is an alphabet letter that stands in for our unknown number. And we solve by undoing the opposite of the operation that we see. So we're trying to basically get rid of minus 12. And we do that by doing the opposite, which is adding 12. So when we're solving equations, we always look at what operation is being done to the variable, and we do the opposite. But we have to balance our equation. Whatever we do on this side of the equal sign, we have to do on the other side. So we talked about in the past that we build a wall. We call this a wall. You can use a solid line or dotted line. That's to signify whatever happens on this side also happens on this side. So I want minus 12 to go away, basically. So I'm going to add 12 on both sides. This is called the inverse, which means the opposite operation. And mathematically, these zero out. Or you could just say they cancel out. That leaves my n all by itself. And on the other side, I have 14 plus 12, and that's 26. So let's see why this works. And this is just the only check that I'm going to do. When we are given n, we now think that it's 26. And the rest of the problem said, well, I'm supposed to take away 12. And if 26 is correct, that will equal 14. And it does. So this is called a check. If you're not sure of your answer, you can always do a mental check or a written check. So now let's go on to the next equation. Our next equation looks quite different. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what does this mean? I have a divided by 3. This is kind of our high school way of using division. So if I have a divided by 3, the opposite of dividing by 3 would be to multiply by 3. So I'm going to build my wall, and then I'm going to multiply by 3 on this side. You could also use 3 over 1, which is the same thing as 3. And I'm going to multiply by 3 on this side. And a 3 divided by 3 mathematically would be 1, or we can just say it cancels, and that leaves a on this side. We've isolated our variable. And on the other side, I'd strongly suggest you use your calculator, but if you don't, we have to remember our faces. So I have a negative for the 5 and a positive for the 3, and we have to remember that story which says if she's halfway awake, then she's mad. And that means my answer is going to be negative 15. So our solution is a equals negative 15. So now let's look at the last problem. Our last equation is called a two-step equation. And that's because I have two numbers that are with the variable. I have negative 6 that I need to undo and plus 3, which I need to undo. And our natural inclination is to start here because my eyes see the negative 6 first. However, when we solve and we have more than one step, we're going to use PEMDAS, which means the order of operations. We just use a nickname called PEMDAS. And we use it backward. Since we're undoing the problem, we're going to start with any addition and subtraction, which means we're going to work with the constant, the number without the variable first. Then we go to multiplication and division, our coefficient, which means the number that's co-working with the variable. So we're going to start by undoing the constant, the number that's being added. And the opposite of adding would be to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. Now I like to draw this bar just to divide my math. So this zeroes out or cancels out, but I have 6 and y, or negative 6 and y left over. So I'm going to bring down negative 6y. I still have that negative 6 to deal with. And on this side, 15 minus 3 would be 12. Now I have to do the opposite of multiplying by negative 6. And the opposite of multiplying by negative 6 is to divide by negative 6. Remember, when we're multiplying or dividing, we use the same integer that they give us. However, I need to remember to do that on the other side. So once again, this negative 6 divided negative 6 would be 1. So that we can also say it cancels out, and we have leftover y on this side. And over here again, I'm going to need a face or my calculator. A positive 12 divided by a negative 6. Again, now she's half awake, but she's mad. So that would leave us with negative 2. So what I'd like you to do now is try the next series on your own, and this will serve as your quiz. What solving step do we need to take in order to isolate W? The opposite of adding 11 is to subtract 11 on both sides of the equal sign. What is the solution? The solution or answer is W equals 23. Let's go to our second equation. What solving step do we need to take in order to isolate X? The opposite of subtracting 8 would be to add 8. So what is the solution for this equation? The solution is X equals 19. Continue on to the third equation. What solving step do we need to take in order to isolate N? We need to divide by 5 on both sides. Because side by side means multiply, we do the opposite, we divide by 5. What is the solution for this equation? N equals negative 6. A negative divided by a positive would be a negative. Continue on to the fourth equation, please. What solving step do we need to solve this equation? We always look to see which side the variable's on. That's the side that tells us what to do. We look what's being done to the variable, and it's being multiplied by 3. So we divide by 3. What is the solution for this equation? The solution is 4 equals x. Let's go on to the next equation. What solving step do we need to take in order to isolate the variable in this equation? Because r is being divided by 4, we multiply by 4 on both sides of the equation. What is the solution for this equation? R equals 24. And now let's move on to our final equation. What is the first step to solving this equation? Because there are two numbers we need to undo, we start with the constant, the number that's being added or subtracted. Since it's being subtracted, we're going to add 5 on both sides of the equation. And we're left with 2a equals 16. What solving step do we now need to do? Because 2a means 2 times a, we're going to do the opposite of multiplying by 2. We're going to divide by 2 on both sides of the equation. What is the solution to this equation? Our solution is a equals 8. Thank you very much for retaking this quiz, and have a nice day.